Welcome to the Cursed Village, where the full moon brings terror and death to its inhabitants. This is a story of fear, superstition, and the dangerous consequences of turning on one another. The villagers have lived in fear for as long as they can remember. Every full moon, a werewolf prowls the streets, killing and maiming anyone who crosses its path. The villagers have tried everything to catch the werewolf, but it always eludes them. They have tried setting traps, patrolling the streets at night, and even seeking help from nearby towns, but nothing has worked. As time goes on, fear begins to take hold of the villagers. They turn on one another, accusing each other of being the werewolf. No one is safe from suspicion, and tensions rise as the full moon approaches. In their desperation, the villagers begin to turn to superstition and magic to protect themselves from the werewolf. Some believe that a witch is behind the attacks and that only her death can lift the curse. But the werewolf is still out there, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. And as the villagers turn on each other, they become even more vulnerable to the creature's attacks. The full moon rises, and the werewolf emerges from the shadows. It prowls the streets, silently observing the villagers as they argue and fight with one another. The villagers are too focused on their own fears to realize that the werewolf is getting closer and closer. Suddenly, the werewolf strikes. A villager is killed in the blink of an eye, and the others realize too late what has happened. They turn and run, but the werewolf is faster and more powerful than they could have ever imagined. The villagers wake up to another massacre with death and destruction all around them. They realize that their fear and mistrust of each other has only made them more vulnerable to the werewolf's attacks. This is the story of the Cursed Village, where fear and superstition have brought only death and destruction. Remember, when faced with danger, it is always better to come together and face it as one, rather than turning on each other. The werewolf may have claimed many lives, but the curse of the Cursed Village will live on as long as fear and mistrust persist. This is the story of a family cursed by a werewolf, a curse that has been passed down from generation to generation, and one that has haunted them for centuries. It all started with a young woman named Sarah who lived in an old cottage in the heart of the forest. One fateful night, Sarah was out gathering firewood when she was bitten by a werewolf. From that moment on, her life was forever changed. She began to experience strange and terrifying symptoms, and soon, the transformation into a werewolf began. The transformation was unpredictable and dangerous. Every full moon, Sarah would lose control and turn into a ferocious beast. The villagers feared her and shunned her, leaving her alone to suffer the curse. Years went by, and the curse was passed down to the next generation of the family. Each new member would face the same terrifying transformation, and their attempts to break the curse were in vain. The curse seemed to have a life of its own, and it was a force to be reckoned with. Every full moon, the family would gather in the old cottage, trying to find a way to break the curse. They would huddle together, trying to protect themselves from the inevitable transformation. But every time, their attempts were unsuccessful, and one of them would inevitably turn into a werewolf, wreaking havoc and destruction. As the years went by, the family became more and more desperate to break the curse. They tried every remedy and every cure, but nothing seemed to work. And so, the curse continued to haunt them generation after generation. The full moon is rising, and the family is once again gathered in the old cottage. They are trying to come up with a plan, but this time, it feels different. The air is thick with tension, and the sound of wolves howling can be heard in the distance. Will they finally find a way to break the curse, or will it continue to haunt them for eternity? The answer remains a mystery, but one thing is certain: the family curse will continue to bring terror and suspense to those who dare to face it. The full moon shone bright as 6 friends set out on a camping trip deep in the heart of the woods. They were eager for adventure, but little did they know the trip would take a terrifying turn. The first few days of their trip were filled with laughter and excitement as they hiked, fished, and explored the beauty of the wilderness. But as the sun began to set on the second night, something changed. One of the friends, Jack, disappeared into the woods on his own, saying he wanted to do some nighttime exploring. The others grew worried as hours passed and Jack didn't return. They searched high and low but found no sign of him. The next morning, they found Jack lying in a clearing, badly injured and covered in bites. He was disoriented and in a state of shock. As the day wore on, Jack's condition worsened. He grew more aggressive and erratic, and the others began to realize that he had been bitten by a werewolf. The full moon was only a few days away, and the group was faced with a decision: stay and try to help Jack or flee for their lives. The situation became increasingly desperate as Jack's transformation into a werewolf accelerated, and the others struggled to control him. The friends tried everything they could think of to reverse the curse, but nothing seemed to work. Jack grew more and more dangerous with each passing hour, and the friends grew more and more scared. The night of the full moon arrived, and the friends locked themselves in their tent, hoping to survive the night. But the sound of Jack's transformation echoed through the woods, and the others soon realized that they are not safe. As the night went on, the sounds of Jack's howls grew closer and closer. The friends huddled together in the tent, afraid to move. Suddenly, the sound stopped and an eerie silence fell over the woods. The friends waited with bated breath, unsure of what was to come. Suddenly, the tent was ripped apart, and Jack appeared in his full werewolf form. The friends screamed in terror as Jack lunged at them, but then, just as suddenly, he turned and disappeared into the night. What happened to the friends in the woods that night is still unknown, but legend has it that the sounds of werewolf howls can still be heard on full moons in the area, and that anyone who dares to venture into the woods may never return. These were some of the best-known werewolf stories. If you liked them and would like to listen to more, please remember to subscribe and leave like.